Today, we're diving into a story that is just extraordinary. It sits right at the corner of unbelievable grief, wild coincidence, and a series of messages that frankly seem to come from another place entirely. It all starts with a father's question, a question you'd think would be impossible to ever answer.
So this is the question that kicks off this whole incredible journey. It's from Mike Buchanan, a dad just trying to wrap his head around losing his son who is known as Wolf. But listen to the question. He's not just asking why. He's asking how his son knew what was coming. And as you're about to see, the answer is somehow even more remarkable than the question itself.
So, where does this all start? Well, it begins with a chance meeting, a connection between two families brought together by a shared tragedy so incredibly specific, it's almost hard to believe it's real. I mean, just look at this. The odds are absolutely staggering. On one side, you've got Suzanne Geeseman. She's a retired Navy commander who's now an evidential medium. Her stepdaughter, Susan, a Marine sergeant, was tragically killed by a lightning strike. And then on the other side, there's Mike Buchanan. His son Wolf, an artist and a poet, was also killed by a lightning strike. Mike and his wife just so happened to be at a conference where Suzanne was speaking. He was the very first person she'd ever met who'd lost a loved one in the exact same unbelievably rare way. So after they meet, Mike, of course, schedules a reading with Suzanne. But here's the thing, Wolf wasn't going to wait for the appointment. He decided to make his presence known in a very, very direct way. 2 days before the reading was even supposed to happen, Suzanne is woken up at sunrise by this overwhelming spiritual energy, and she knows instantly it's Wolf. For the next hour, he just unloads what she recorded as 46 distinct pieces of evidence. And these weren't vague things like he's at peace. No, these were specific, odd, and totally cryptic clues. Okay, so one of the very first things she hears is the phrase, pajama jama mama. I mean, what do you even do with that? It made absolutely zero sense to her, but she trusted it, she wrote it down, figuring it would all make sense later. And then another piece of the puzzle. Wolf gives her a really clear reference to the act of chiseling in stone. Again, there's no context. It's just another mysterious detail on a growing list, waiting to be figured out. He also showed her this super vivid image of a kid's little red radio flyer wagon, but he specifically drew her attention to the wheels. There was this feeling of importance around it, a detail that she knew mattered, even if she didn't know why. And then came the last message. And this one was so personal. As Wolf's presence started to fade, he made the American Sign Language symbol for I love you. Now, Suzanne had no way of knowing this, but that was their thing. It was the special, private sign that Wolf and his dad shared every single time they said goodbye. So now Suzanne is sitting on this pile of completely bizarre clues. The next part of the story is like a detective novel, trying to solve these spirit puzzles. And the way the answers showed up was just as strange as the clues themselves. And this is where it gets really wild. Months go by, and Suzanne feels this strange pull to go into a bookstore. She's standing in an aisle, and a book on the shelf in front of her literally moves, not once, but twice, so she buys it. Later, she feels Wolf's presence and is guided to the photo section of the book. And there it is, a picture of a statue called Pachamama, which sounds almost exactly like Pajama Jama Mama, and the caption? It said the statue was famous for being chiseled in stone. Just like that, 2 of the most random clues were solved in one single jaw-dropping moment. But to really get what Wolf was trying to say, we have to look back at his life here on Earth. See, while he was here, Wolf really struggled to fit in, and he was given a pretty serious clinical diagnosis. So this was the label Wolf carried in his life. He heard voices, he had a tough time functioning in what we think of as normal society. Clinically speaking, he was mentally ill. But from his perspective, from the other side, well, that wasn't the whole story at all. This is what he explained through Suzanne. He said his experience wasn't a disorder. It was a state of being constantly plugged into another dimension, a nonstop flood of information that made it almost impossible to operate on a normal baseline. But he made it so clear, while his mind was completely overwhelmed, his heart, his essence, was perfectly fine. So let's get back to his father's original question, because the most powerful, goosebump-inducing piece of this whole puzzle was discovered by his parents in his apartment only after he was already gone. You have to picture this. Mike and his wife are finally allowed into Wolf's apartment, and it's spotless, which was so not like him. The bed was made, the dishes were done. It was as if he had prepared everything, like he was expecting them. In a room covered with photos of nature, they found a single poem they had never seen before, just sitting out in a prominent spot. And it had this line in it. It doesn't read like a note of despair, does it? It reads like a statement of intent, a transition.
And this is what answers the question. Near that poem was a drawing. It showed the exact identifiable tree on Burial Hill where his body was found. And at the base of that tree in the drawing, he'd drawn 2 roses. Now get this. The day after Wolf died, before they had seen any of this, his parents spontaneously decided to buy 2 red roses, something they've never done before for anyone, and they placed them right at the base of that exact tree. The drawing didn't just predict where he would die, it predicted the unique, loving tribute his parents would give him. So after all of that, the riddles, the synchronicities, the prophecy, what was the point? Well, Wolf's ultimate message was disarmingly simple. He came through to show that we are so much more than our bodies, more than our earthly struggles, that we're all connected, and that the force holding it all together is love. It kind of leaves you wondering, doesn't it? What if the veil between our world and the next is just a lot thinner than we think?